Welcome back to Mr. Rowley's Virtual Music Classroom. Today we're going to do Lesson 3 of the Composition series. In the first lesson of the Composition series, we learned how to create a melody. We created an 8-measure melody and talked a little bit about that part of the creative process. In the second lesson, we harmonized that melody. We added chords to it and talked about that part of the process. In today's lesson, we're going to expand the whole piece of music. In fact, we're going to finish it. I wrote the remainder of the piece of music, and I'm going to talk through my process of that. And not only did I write the new parts of the melody, but I also harmonized it again with chords, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And in doing so, I also created a form for the song. And as we move along, and at the end of the lesson, you'll have discovered what the form of the song is. It came with the development of the song. I'm also going to talk about some of the composition techniques I used to create different sections of the piece of music. Use some little tricks of the trade, as we call them. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope that the final product that we have of this little piece of music will help you and inspire you to write yourselves. So right off the bat, we're going to just listen to the melody from the first lesson to give ourselves a reminder of what it sounded like and what we did to get this piece of music started. So here is just the melody. And now that same section of melody, now with the piano playing the chords or the harmonization underneath that melody. Remember, all we're doing in this lesson is expanding the melody and harmonizing or adding chords to that melody. So here's the first section that we wrote in Lesson 1 and the chords we added in Lesson 2. As we move forward, I had to make a decision. I wanted to do something different than the first 8-measure melody. Now, we could have taken that 8-measure melody and just developed it into something else, but I wanted to go a little bit further. It's still a development, but I wanted to create a new melody, to create a new section of the song. And so that's what I did. But in fact, it is a development of the first melody, and it's a strange one, but it works really well. It doesn't always work that well and this easily, but it happened to work this time. And one of the reasons for that is because the melody starts on the tonic, or the first note of the scale, and it also ends on that same pitch. So that was one clue that gave me I could do something. This is a compositional technique that's kind of cool, actually. What I did is I just took that first melody and I flipped it backwards. So it basically is the same pitches, but they're just turned around. And the only other change I made to it is where the syncopated sequences are, I slightly changed the rhythm. They're still sequences. I just moved the dotted eighth note and the dotted quarter note and the eighth note to a different place in the measure. But it still has the character of that first 8-measure melody, but it's backwards, and it works really well. Now, by turning it backwards, I also made it so I needed to harmonize it differently. So there is a different chord progression that goes with it to make the musical journey with harmonization make sense. The chord sequencing makes sense. So the first 2 sections are basically built around the same, well, they are built around the same notes. It's in the same key, it's the same scale. But I actually just flipped around the melody and then that made it so I needed to make the harmony slightly different. So it's a really cool technique that sometimes works, and it happened to work this time. So now at this point in the song, I have an A section and a B section. Now, it could just end up being that form, what we call binary form, A, B, A, B, A, B. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but right now, that's what it is. So I'm going to jump to the next section of the song. Now, I did something with this section. It's another compositional technique, but before I tell you what it is, I want you to listen to just the melody and see if you can guess what I did. Well, did you guess? Maybe? Well, just in case you didn't, what I did is I just copied the A section melody. It's the same melody. It's just augmented. It's augmented rhythmically, meaning that I changed the rhythm by taking all the notes in the A section melody and making them twice as long as they were originally written. So if it was a dotted quarter note, it now becomes a dotted half note. If it was a quarter note, it becomes a half note, so on and so forth. So it is exactly the same melody. But because I augmented it, I also had to change the harmony slightly. And I wanted to change the harmony slightly. I wanted to make it a little bit different. But it is actually still just the A section. It may be an A prime, might be a little bit different, but it's still an A. So now we have A, B, and now the A. So let's listen to it with a new harmonization. So for the next section in the piece, I was now starting to think about the form. So we have A, B, A up to this point. And one of my favorite forms to write in is what we call the Rondo Form. So that means that the next section needed to be different, because Rondo Form is A, B, A, C, A, D, so on and so forth. The A section keeps coming back. But I wanted to do something else as well. I thought if I could keep the same chord progression for that second A section, remember that augmented A section that I had to write different chords for, what if I could keep those chords the same but change the melody? And how could I do that from a developmental standpoint from something else I've already written? Because that's what my thought process was. So in creating the melody, I went ahead and just copied the chord progression, and then I took the same technique I used to create the second A section, that augmentation, and I added it to the B section. And I actually didn't have to change too many notes, just a couple. But then I wanted to change it up even more because I wanted it to become something completely different. So what I did was I used the B section in an augmented situation, and I changed the rhythms, and I added a lot of extra notes. And those extra notes were mostly non-chord tones. That means they weren't part of the chord that's underneath them. They're passing tones or neighbor tones. It adds a lot of interest and some tension and release within the music itself. but it still kept that easy enough that a middle level player who this piece is written for could play. And remember, going back to our first and second lessons, we talked about who or what this piece would be written for. And I decided to make it for a middle level, like a middle school level player on flute. And the audience would be like playing for maybe solo ensemble contest or a small recital, if in fact it ended up being a solo. It may not happen. That may not happen. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this C section actually used the chord progression from the second A section, that augmented A section, and it actually used the pitches and the melodic structure of the B section, augmented again, but then some added notes and changing a couple of notes to fit the harmony better. So I used a couple of different composition techniques here. Copying the chord progression from that second A section, that was the one. Using the melodic structure of the B section, and then adding non-chord tones to it in the form of passing tones and neighbor tones, and changing some of the rhythm here and there, just slightly. And then came up with the B section. The C section. So now we have an A, a B, an A, and now a C section. Let's take a listen. If you're going to try to figure out how that C section there, that melody, is like the B melody, it's going to take you some good harmonic, more importantly, some melodic analysis to figure it out. Good, go for it. That'd be fun. Now let's listen to it with the harmony. And remember, the harmony is exactly the same as the second A section. And now I kind of want to finish the song. Remember, I'm writing this for a middle schooler, so it doesn't have to be too long. So all I did was I basically repeated the opening A section, but I added a little bit at the end. I added what I call a tag. I took the last 4 measures of the original theme, the A section, and I just took the last 4 measures and copied it, but made the last 2 measures slightly different to make it sound like an ending. And then when I do an arrangement, I'm probably going to mess around with the dynamics and tempos and things like that to make it just a little bit different. We're going to get to that in the next lesson. But this is the A section again with a tag to end it. And that's how we ended up with the piece. Again, I'm going to play the melody, and then we'll listen to it with the harmony. And now here's that final A section with the harmony part. So we now ended up with a piece of music that's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, which is a really good length for a middle level piece of music if it was going to be played as a solo. And we have a form that is what we call a rondo form, A, B, A, C, A. It's fairly simple, it's pretty straightforward, and it works really well for that level of player. I don't have really highly sophisticated harmonies. There's a few 7 chords in there, which we haven't talked about the 7 chord in our music theory yet. That's one of the next music theory lessons, though. And now it's a matter of arranging it. What is this piece actually going to become? Because right now we have a piece of music that has a melody and some chords underneath it. We need to make it into a full-fledged piece of music, which we're going to do that in lesson 4. Before we get to those, let's listen to the entire piece from beginning to end with the melody and the chord progressions underneath. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that this is inspiring you to get out there and try some composing on your own. So there you go. There's our piece of music, which still has the title of Idea, because that's all this was an idea. And all of the music I ever write is never finished. And this is only finished for the standpoint of this lesson, in that we have a piece that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a form, it has melody, and it has a chord structure, a harmony underneath it. From here, we'll arrange it. And again, that's going to be in lesson 4. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I hope you keep coming back to become more and more of a music creator. So thank you to all you fledgling composers out there. Again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Bye. Thank you.